Alright, welcome back to Wild Outdoor Living. So a few weeks ago I gave you guys a video of my first look at my new Trek Remedy. Well, I've had it about 100 miles so far. I've had it on a couple of definitely true trail rides already, and I'm ready to give a first impressions review on the bike itself and how it performs. So the Trek Remedy, if you're not familiar, is a all-mountain enduro kind of long travel trail bike. It's got 160 millimeters of travel in the front and 150 millimeters of travel in the rear. It's got kind of a moderate reach at 455 millimeters in the low setting, and it's running on 27.5 inch wheels. Alright guys, so I really like the bike. I've obviously only had it 100 miles. I've only had it on a few trail rides so far, but I'm really happy. So here's some highlights of it. So this bike is highly nimble, it's very well balanced, and the handling is very predictable, and it's just overall a very capable bike. Those are the things that stand out to me the most, regardless of the details. That's what really comes home for me, and that's why I'm really enjoying this bike so far. So let's hit on a few things. So first, the climbing. The climbing of the Remedy is actually excellent. It's not going to surge ahead on flat, easy climbs like an XC race bike or something like that, but it's actually perfectly adequate in those situations, and it really shines when you get it into the steep and technical stuff. Really tight corners, long, steep climbs. This bike really has a lot of traction out of the big tires and the suspension, and the nimble handling really helps it to get around obstacles and that sort of thing. I've had this thing up several big trail climbs, some moderate climbs, as well as a few staircases, and I've been really pleased with it overall in that department. It really hasn't disappointed me in any way in terms of climbing. The front wheel doesn't wander, nothing to be surprised about here in the climbing department. From climbing, let's go to downhill. The Remedy is not the longest, biggest 29 enduro bike out there. It's not even a 29er, and what I've noticed is that it's not unstable. Some people will say that it's not as stable as some of the big bikes. It might not be, but it's certainly not an unstable bike. It's perfectly adequate in terms of high speed stability for the kind of speed that I am willing to go. But where it really shines is the way that it handles downhill. So it's really easy to change lines on this bike, really easy to get around corners. Initiating turns is really enjoyable. And a big standout for the downhills, it's got the travel to really give you the capability you need on some of the gnarlier sections. If you need to just let the bike do the work, it can absolutely do that. But it never is out of your control in terms of what you want the bike to do. It'll do what you want it to do. It's never taking you for a ride. And for me, the big benefit to that is that the bike makes very intimidating trail features less intimidating, because I don't have to be quite as committed to just hanging on to the bike. I'm really in control of what I'm doing. I can make decisions mid-feature if I need to. And getting on and off the bike in really off-camber, balancy situations is not nearly as difficult, because the bike is much smaller, much lower to the ground than some other big rigs that are out there. So for me, in these kind of slow speed, high-tech situations, I've really appreciated that. You know, there are probably bikes out there that will do these things faster, but this bike makes me less scared, and that is definitely the most important thing to me. The other thing too with the handling, both downhill, uphill, and on the flats, is the bike feels really well balanced. So I find that I don't really have to think about balancing weight over the front and rear wheels or switching between the two. I can really just ride the bike, and I have equal traction, both tires. Both uphill and downhill, the bike doesn't feel like it's extra long or if it's too short. It just kind of feels right, and I can just focus on riding, and that's really a big thing. But let's take a little bit to talk about the spec and kind of my experiences with the parts that the bike comes with so far. So with the knock block, you know, I mentioned it in my last video. I'm still not super glad that it's there. Like, if given the choice, I would rather not have it, but I almost forgot to actually put it in this review because I've just simply kind of forgotten about it. It really hasn't been an issue at all. There's no corner that I can find that I can get myself around on any other bike where I can hit the knock block. Just the way I fit on this bike, the way I go around corners, I can't ride the bike and hit the knock block at the same time. I've really tried, and I just can't do it. So in terms of it being a nuisance, for me it's not. I know for others it might be, but for me it's just a non-issue. So it's not something I'm going to be worrying about going forward. The suspension hasn't raised any complaints. The RockShox stuff is really smooth these days. It was really easy to set up. And if you want to firm up the suspension, the levers on the shock and the compression dial on the fork really firm things up nicely. You can really actually lock this bike up basically entirely. and it can be a very efficient on pavement bike when it needs to. So a few changes that I've made to the bike. So you guys know I swapped to the Ergon saddle. I also swapped to the Ergon GD1 grips, and then I swapped the fork decals on the fork. The black ones, what's the point of them on a black fork? Couldn't even see them. I did find some orange ones, so I swapped those on there, and I got a Mucky Nuts fender to help keep mud and stuff out of that fork lower. So those are the major changes I made to the bike. I'm still considering whether or not I should switch tires, but to be honest, the tires have been really predictable. They've been totally adequate. I think there's better tires out there with better grip. I do wish that this bike had come with SE5s or something a bit more aggressive, but I've taken this thing any place. I would be willing to take any bike, and the tires have performed just fine. So I may stick with them. If I couldn't switch them, I'll be totally happy, but there's still a chance that I'll swap them out. I'm still trying to get a feel for them. As always, I'll be doing a follow-up video concerning the longevity of the bike, as well as any other points that I might have and any questions you guys have. Leave them in the comments down below and they'll get covered in that video as well. I will also be featuring this bike in all of my trail ride videos that I have planned throughout the rest of the year. So you'll definitely be seeing more of it. And yeah, we'll catch you guys later. Have fun.